Welcome, everyone. We'll get started in just a couple minutes. Welcome, everyone. We'll give it just a couple more minutes for a few more folks to join. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Enable DocuSign eSignature with your mobile apps. If you registered under a slightly different name using mobile SDKs, you're in the right place. We just tweaked the name a little bit for our presentation today. My name is Melissa Marsh from our developer programs team. Naveen, can you go to the next slide? Perfect. Thank you. I'll be moderating and running our backroom logistics today. I'm here with Naveen Tulseela, lead Android engineer, and Ashok Meena, senior software engineer for mobile. They will be presenting and demoing and also addressing questions throughout the webinar today in the Q&A box at the end of your screen after the presentation. Before we get started, I have a few quick housekeeping items to go over. You are placed in listen-only mode, and this session is being recorded. You'll receive an email in about a week with a link to the webinar recording along with other resources. Please be sure to use the Q&A box. And Naveen, next slide. Perfect. As you see, the Q&A box is at the end of your screen. Please feel free to ask questions as they occur to you throughout the webinar, and we'll answer via the Q&A box or let you know that we'll answer them live after the demos. To copy and save your questions and answers, simply right-click on them and copy and save to your desktop or document. So you should see a quick poll in just a moment on your screen. If you can answer those questions, that will help us understand where you are in your development journey and enable us to customize content for this and future webinars. Okay, that is it for housekeeping. Naveen, take it away.
Yeah, all right. Thank you, Melissa. Hi, everyone. So in today's agenda, we'll go over the following topics. So initially, we'll get started with going through the SDK overview. What are the various benefits of SDKs? And then we'll cover various key features of SDKs. Then we'll cover like what are the latest updates in both Android and iOS SDKs. We'll also show various resources for SDK 101, which includes documentation, how-to guides, etc. And finally, we'll also cover resources section, which includes different links for DocuSign University and mobile SDK reports, etc. Let's get started with the mobile SDK overview. Okay, so what are the various benefits of SDK? We do have the eSign REST APIs available. So how you make decision like when to use mobile SDK over REST APIs? So in mobile SDKs, let's say like Android SDK is built completely on Kotlin and iOS SDK is built on Objective-C. So these two SDKs are completely built with native DocuSign UI components. And it provides complete template and envelope-driven document workflows. And you should be able to access the eSign REST API right from mobile SDKs as well. Right. So we do provide some kind of delegates and managers classes in SDKs where you can invoke any eSign REST API right from SDK. So whereas with the eSign REST API, like, yeah, that's true. Like we have all the endpoints, but it doesn't have the offline access, or you don't have the endpoints for the account management. And with mobile SDKs, it covers offline signing capabilities from both templates and envelope creation. Whereas with the eSign REST API, it covers only online flow. And as you know, like in mobile SDKs, like it uses native components, which will be presented for native signing. And with the eSign REST API, it doesn't use any custom UI components. So all it presents is a web view for signing. And moreover, like in SDKs, like it handles all the events for the signing as well. Let's say we are talking about online signing. We do handle a bunch of events for the online signing or embedded signing. Whereas with the eSign REST API, like you have to handle all those event handling yourself in the mobile app. So which will be cumbersome. Let's say there is a change in backend, like updating a new event or adding a new event. So all those events cannot be updated for a mobile app if you implement using eSign REST API. But whereas with the SDK, we keep track of all those updates within our teams and handle all those events automatically. And then our SDKs support different tab types such as signature, initials, name, date, text box, etc. eSign REST API provides support for all the tab types in addition to whatever that are supported for mobile SDK. But these are the standard tab types which we support in mobile SDK. Let's say you have a need like where you need support for additional tab type, do let us know and we'll add support for it. And so we do support Xamarin based applications. So our SDK are published in Xamarin Nugget repo as well, where you can download those SDK packages for your Xamarin based applications. So whereas with the eSign REST API, that doesn't exist. Okay, now let's jump on to decision tree, like how you choose between API versus SDK. Okay, to get started, like you have the you have to integrate like DocuSign signature capability in your mobile app, right? So, and then if you need offline support, then definitely you should go and choose our mobile SDKs. And let's say you have a need for presenting different signature model, such as like you need to draw the signature, or you need to type the signature, or maybe you want to capture the photo as a signature. So all those forms of signatures are supported from our SDKs. In that case, like you can choose our SDKs over APIs. And as I mentioned in the previous slide, if you have to handle events for embedded signing, so we take care of all that and handle events, keep the events up to date. So in that case, like you can choose our SDKs as well. So these are the various decision paths, like you can choose SDKs over REST APIs. Okay, now let's jump on to key features for SDK. As you know, like in SDK, we support 3 forms of signing. One is online signing or embedded signing, and offline signing, and captive signing. So in online signing, we support 3 forms of APIs. One is signing based on a remote envelope. Let's say you have the envelope created in the DocuSign portal, and you have the envelope ID. So that's called remote envelope. It exists in the DocuSign server. And you would like to perform online signing using that envelope ID, which is remote envelope. Our SDKs provide APIs for that. And similarly, like you have a use case where you have to provide the PDF on the fly and create tabs locally on the device. Then we do provide API for that, like you create the envelope from scratch, provide all those details for creating the envelope, and start the online signing. Similarly, like let's say you have a template in DocuSign web portal, and you have provided the document and added the tabs in the template, so all good to go. So if you want to invoke online signing using the template, we do have the API where you provide the template ID, and it launches the online signing. So our SDKs provides big convenience factor, so where it leverages all the heavy lifting and provides the convenience APIs to you to use our SDK online signing capabilities. Okay, now let's jump on to offline signing. So as mentioned, like, so it provides offline signing support for local envelope, which is the envelope created on the device. So you just create the envelope, add the tabs locally, provide the document, PDF, and then perform signing. Similarly, you can perform offline signing based on the template as well. So you just need to provide the template ID and invoke our offline signing SDK API. So now let's say you have a need like where you don't have the account and you want to perform signing, right? In that case, you can use our captive signing API. And we support 2 forms of captive signing. So one is signing based on the signing URL. So you create the signing URL in the mobile app and invoke our captive signing and just provide the signing URL. So you don't need to worry about the whether the signer has the account or not. You can use our captive signing API with the URL here. Similarly, we do support captive signing based on the captive recipient. Let's say when you create the envelope, you have the envelope ID and client user ID of the captive recipient. You can provide those 2 details and we'll launch captive signing flow. So these are the various 3 key features we support from mobile SDKs. And we provide the biggest convenience factor in such a way like invoke the signing API, provide the envelope ID or template ID, these details, and you get everything in the callback listeners, whether the envelope is successfully signed or it was canceled or there is an error during signing. So as simple as that. Our SDKs take the heavy lifting of all the complexity inside that. Okay, now let's jump on to SDK use cases. So how do I know when to use which signing, right? So let's say, especially like you are in the bad network connectivity zone, or the network is flaky in your areas, right, or countries. So those are the places where you can choose our offline signing API. So we have SDK customers. We have some SDK customers who uses this offline signing API. where their field services technician does in-person signing with their customers. So throughout the day, they get the offline signing done from their customers, and there is no need to have the network connectivity there, and they will just perform the offline signing. And by the end of the day, once all the signing is done, they'll go to the office and just sync all the envelopes they sign in the morning when they're connected to Wi-Fi. So then all these signed envelopes will be sent to the DocuSign server, and they're available at DocuSign. So now, when do I choose online signing? Right. So let's say there is a real-time real estate bidding application. Who wants to do the knowledge-based authentication or the security check for their signers? Then they can choose online signing API. So as mentioned, like as it is online signing, we need to have a very good network connectivity to perform this online signing process, right? So for as a flow, like, so you just create and cache the envelope for template, or you create the envelope locally, and then you present the screen, which will ask like knowledge-based authentication questions or security check questions. And then based on that, launch the online signing flow. So as mentioned in the previous slide, we take care of handling all the events for online signing, and it handles all the complexity, and it is in adherence with the backend event handling as well. So last but not the least, which is captive signing. So we do have a SDK customer like who is a financial services firm, and they use our SDK captive signing API to get the signing done from their investors who doesn't have the DocuSign accounts. So as you see here, like for offline and online signing, the signers will be having the DocuSign accounts. With the captive signing, you don't need to have the DocuSign account, and you can get the signing done from your customers. So you can use our signing URL API. So you create the signing URL and just provide the URL to the signer to get the signing done. So these are the various basic use cases to use our signing APIs. Okay, now let's jump into see like what's latest in our mobile SDKs. Okay, so we'll get started with Android. So in Android, the latest version is 1.6.0. In this version, we introduced two new features. One is auto placing tags, and the other one is captive signing based on URLs. So what is auto placing tags? Right. So far in the envelope creation, when you want to create the envelope locally on the device, you provide the document URL, create the tabs, add the recipients, and then compose the envelope and perform offline or online signing. But when you are composing the envelope, you have to specify X and Y tab, X and Y coordinates for all the tabs that you want to have in the document. So if you use auto place tags feature, so you don't need to specify X and Y coordinates. We understand like specifying or computing X and Y coordinates for tags is a pain. So this anchor tags will definitely help you to overcome that situation. Instead of X and Y, just specify anchor strings. So in this example, if you see on the right side, you have the client number. Right. For example, if you want to place text tag on top of the client number, you just specify the anchor string as client number and make sure that string should be unique in the document. Otherwise, if it is in multiple places, then the tags will be placed in multiple places. So in this document, like it is specified once. So you can specify anchor string as a client number, and the text tag will be placed automatically there. No need of X and Y coordinates. So then we jump on to question, okay, I see the tags, the address 231 Dalton Way, New York, USA 1005 in the address above. There are no strings, but I see 3 tags there. How can we do that? So in that case, what we can do is in the document, you can place a string on the line, like address line 1, address line 2 on the second line, address line 3 on the third line. and mask that text with the white color, like basically the background of the document. So then that won't be visible, but our SDK will still detect those strings, and you should be able to place those anchor tags there. So that's about auto place tags. Now we have another feature, captive signing. So as we discussed earlier, so it is nothing but embedded signing based on the signing URLs. So this is especially useful for getting the signing done from the signers who doesn't have the DocuSign accounts. So in a mobile app, what you do is create the envelope, publish to DocuSign, and then you make the recipient view request and retrieve the signing URL. And once you receive the signing URL in the mobile app, provide that invoke our SDKs captive signing with URL API, and you provide the URL. Then we take care of launching the signing, captive signing flow, and finish the signing. Okay, so now let's jump on to demo for these two features. Okay, initially, like let's get started with the auto place tags demo. So so this demo is for TGK sample application. As you know, this is already published in our mobile SDK repo. And if you see, like for creating the envelope, we have an API, compose and send envelope from our envelope delegate API. And in this compose and send envelope API, we need to provide the envelope object. So how do we build envelope object? We can take a look. So in the envelope API, so we provide the URL of the document. Just provide the URL of the document using document builder, and invoke tab builder API to create the tabs, right? So if you see here, we have the tabs created for those tabs which we saw. And as you see here, there are no X and Y coordinate methods. So all you see is the anchor string and anchor Y offset methods for throughout the tabs, like whatever we defined in the document. Okay, so before jumping onto this, let me run the demo. So this is our TGK Capital Firm app used by the investment advisor, Olivia Lee. So let's log into DocuSign account. Okay, for the login, we provide an API, as you know. So that will take care of launching the login flow for DocuSign. And once the authentication is successful, you should be able to use any DocuSign SDK API. Okay, so let's jump on to we have two investors, Tom Wood and Andrea Khan, who would like to get the signing done. So let's go with the Andrea, and we'd like to get the signing done. And she would like to invest 500K into the firm, and we'd like to use auto place tax feature here. And now we should see the signing launched with the tax placed based on this flow. Okay, so we accept the consumer disclosure agreement, and as you see here, we see all the tags placed. And if you see the code here right next to it, tags are created, and there is no mention of X and Y coordinates. So for example, if you see address line 1, that's the one which we talked earlier. So 631 Dalton Way on the right end of the simulator. So that's the tag that is baked into the document, and it should place the tag automatically. So similarly, like if you see full name, you specify the full name here, and the text tag will be displayed on top of it. There is no mention of X or Y coordinates here. And similarly, for client number, you specify the anchor string client number, specify the offset where it want to be displayed. let's say you don't specify the offset, what it will do is it will place the tag right on the client number. So you might want to specify the offset, anchor offset. So we do provide anchor X offset and anchor Y offset methods, where you should be able to position wherever you need. So here I specified -40, which means like it will be placed right on top. Okay, and then you specify the tab type, which is the usual thing, and then it should create the tab for you. And similarly, like you specify the signature, name of the applicant, and as you see here, only the anchor string is specified. Invoke that method and specify the anchor string that you need, where the tag needs to be placed, and the Y offset. So this is it. This will create the envelope, and it will launch the online signing flow. So there are two steps to this process. So you create the envelope, and then once you have it, invoke our compose and send envelope API, which I have shown earlier. And then after that, invoke our online signing APIs with the created envelope ID. Okay, so now let's finish signing. Okay, so I finished signing, just a finish. Okay, and Andrea has finished signing. So that is it. So it's as simple as that, to use our captive anchor place tags feature. So now let's jump on to captive signing with URL feature. So let's take a look at the demo first, and then we'll jump on to the code. Okay, we have a new investor who would like to invest in the firm, and would like to provide the details. So this investor, Jane, doesn't have a DocuSign account, but we would like to get the signing done for Jane. So specify the option like where you would like to use our captive signing API, where you can generate, where you can specify the signing URL. Okay, so now Jane would like to invest 300K into the firm, and then we'll launch the captive signing flow by invoking our SDK API. So I accept the disclosure and pass the control to Jane. So this is all the captive signing flow, where it provides the consumer disclosure, accept the agreement, and then you should be able to see the tags. And if you see in on top of the full name, we see the investor name Jane as well. And notice that Jane doesn't have a DocuSign account, and we launched this captive signing just based on the URL. Okay, now let's finish signing. Okay, Jane finishes signing, and the email will be sent, and pass control back to Olivia, who is our investment advisor. This is about the captive signing flow. Now let's take a look at the code. Okay, as we are using captive signing with URL, so you can take a look like how we can generate the URL and then invoke our SDKs captive signing API. So all this can be done on the mobile app side. As you see here, what I'm doing is I'm just creating the envelope definition and pushing the envelope to DocuSign. So as I mentioned earlier, so we do provide eSign API delegate from SDK, and you should be able to invoke the entire eSign REST API set. So this is the eSign envelopes API, which is the REST API, which will invoke for creating the envelope. So define the envelope, compose the envelope, and publish to DocuSign with this API. So this is the REST API. So once it is done, so you will receive the envelope summary in the response for that envelopes call. And once you receive the response, you need to create the another request, which is the envelope recipient view API. So this is also another REST API, which we are invoking from the mobile app. So far, what we are seeing is we are building the envelope, pushing the envelope to DocuSign, and then invoking another REST API to generate the signing URL. So this is all done on the mobile app side, and you can use our eSign API so that we take care of authentication and use our eSign API delegate here. So once this call is successful, then we'll receive the signing URL. So this is the signing URL where we will pass to our mobile SDK to start the captive signing process. So now, as you see here, we'll be invoking launch captive signing with the signing URL that we generated just now. So that will launch the actual signing flow, and signer should be able to complete the signing process. So once the signing is successful, then we'll receive on success here, so that you can display or you can take any action from the app side. So this is like a callback listener, which will be useful for notifications. So similarly, like if the signing is cancelled during signing, and then you get on cancel notification. So then you can display any message accordingly. Similarly, like we have on error callback method, which gets triggered if there is any error during the signing process. Let's say like network goes down, or envelope is not valid, timed out, any kind of notifications you get in the on error callback method. Okay, this is pretty much about the demo for latest updates in Android SDK. So now, okay, let's jump on to what's new in iOS SDK. So with that, I'll hand it over to Ashok, who will walk us through this. Over to you, Ashok.
Yeah, thank you, Naveen. I'll start the sharing. Please let me know when you could see the screen.
Yeah, I can see.
Hello, everyone. So we just took a look at some of the features Android SDK brought recently, and we'll be taking a look at corresponding features for iOS SDK. So we just saw captive signing demo using signing URLs. We'll be taking a look on the same feature on the iOS SDK. Let's take a look on signing URLs. On your left, you could see there is a pre-recorded video of iOS app running, like TGK iOS app running the app on Swift. Swift based app running on the simulator. And on your right, you could see the Xcode project that is TGK Financial. And we will later on take a look at where you could locate this resource and experiment with it. But for now, let's jump in. You could see that this app has already been logged in, and we will take a corresponding look at how to perform a login on iOS SDK. Please note that these features are also available on Android SDK, and you could ask us if you are unable to locate it, or if you have any questions, you could post a question on GitHub repo or on Stack Overflow when you are experimenting with it and need some help. So the main function is get authentication token with web login. It's part of login view controller. Here, I am initializing a web auth session with the auth URL, callback URL screen, and the auth URL is being created with using client ID and redirect URI. How do you get these two pieces of information? Let's take a look. I have already logged in with my account, and I'm looking at the settings. If you look down, there are apps and keys section, and you could create an integration which creates an integration key, and upon selecting what type of authorization you want to take, you would also need to set redirect URIs. Once the auth session is initiated, we could use it to get access token and later on user services, user information. Upon success, we are getting the data back and extracting account information. Here I am using the account information which we received to perform the login with the access token. That would land us right on this screen. Now let's take a look at how we would get captive signing done for one of the recipients, like say Tom Wood. Let's take a look at the agreement. And once ready, we will invest in the portfolio. At this point, it prompts an option which we kept for developers. At this point, you could choose either to go with offline envelope or captive signing. Let's take a look at captive signing. But first, how we can create an envelope and make it signable via captive signing. Right here in web services.swift, we have a payload that contains two tabs, sign here tab and date sign tab. A very simple configuration for the recipient. Once all that information is passed to envelopes API, we make a post method call that would create the envelope. And once we create the envelope, we would get an envelope ID back. And what we could do, we could use that envelope ID to present captive signing with a presenting view controller. So at this point on your left is the client-based client app view controller. We would be directly passing that view controller so that we can present on top of it. At this point, SDKs native signing components will take over, and you would be able to perform signing. So here's where the power of SDK comes in. We have abstracted whole bunch of notifications, event handling, telemetry details, and the view transitions, all the UX needs from you. And we have provided a simple method that you could use to present captive signing. Now, compared to Android, where we were using directly signing URL, this is a bit different version. And later on, we will walk through the Android version as well. But these all interfaces are available on both Android and iOS SDK. So here I'm recipient username, recipient email, client user ID is being used to present captive signing. Let's take a look on the demo. It will create an envelope. And once the envelope ID is received, it will start loading the signing session. Once the signing session is loaded, you would see that we have envelope loaded. We have all of the theme already loaded. You could interact with the hamburger menu. And once ready, you could press continue to see the responsive document. Now, this is showing the mobile-friendly document. Let me scroll a bit to show how responsive it is. And I could also tap on next to locate the next actionable tab. Tapping on sign will adopt one of the signatures on the account. If you would like to change it, say scribble your own signature, you could edit it and scribble your name, adopt and sign. It will ask you to replace it. Once ready, I see that I had only one tab which was actionable. I'll finish it and review PDF to finally conclude the signing session. Tapping on finish will jump control right back on the host tab. That concludes the demo of captive signing. Now, let's take a look at some of the methods we have on the envelope managers. Similar to Android, we have a whole bunch of variants for presenting captive signing section. And we also have one that allows you to present using signing URLs. You just need an envelope ID, signing URL. And if you have multiple recipients, then you would also need a recipient ID. Let's take a look at auto place tags, also known as anchor tags. So anchor tags, like what Naveen showcased earlier, allows you to place tabs without specifying XY coordinates. You could specify the offsets. So we'll take a look at the anchor tabs. We'll also take a look at some of the other enhancements we did recently. Like last year we started supporting Bitcode completely. We had to do a whole bunch of heavy lifting with third-party libraries to enable it. We also completely support Swift packages. We introduced support for radio tabs and groups, and we made numerous telemetry improvements that allows us to look deeper into telemetry with our proprietary DocuSign APIs, so that we can locate any of the issues or performance needs quickly. So here, I have a template loaded. I'm logged into DocuSign's demo account. I'll be showcasing the, oops, sorry, it did log me out, but I have created a template that has all of the anchor tabs created. Right here, let me edit it so that I can show you how you could create an anchor tab based envelope using our DocuSign web. You would need to create a location, and you could edit it, and you could see that I have added a simple string $ to place all the tabs next to the $sign. It ended up placing a whole bunch of text tabs, and eventually I ended up placing a sign tab here. Let's take a look at the demo and code in action. We recently released it with our flagship iOS app, and I'll be using the same to showcase it. Before we jump into that, let's take a look at some of the easy way to set up our SDK, customize the look and feel, as well as some of the internals of SDK. By default, you could use default configurations, which are available on DSM Manager. These are static methods. Developer can also change some of the settings here. And once you have updated configuration, you could use it to set up the SDK with configuration. Now, I have these envelopes already sent. Let's take a look at how we can download it. I could tap on the download and offline envelope, and it would end up invoking this function, which invokes download envelope with envelope ID function on the envelopes manager. Once the envelope is ready, I'll tap on sign, and you would see that all of the anchor tabs are cleanly placed here. I'll tap on next field to perform the signature, scribble my sign, and finish it. Once I finish it, a bunch of things will happen in the background. It will finalize the envelope. It will place it in the sync mode, which allows us to send the envelope back to DocuSign servers with a sync call. Let's take a look at that. So you could so once you downloaded the envelope, you could use it. You could use the same envelope with the envelope ID to resume signing. That will present this native signing experience. You could also access cached envelopes with downloaded envelope, and once ready, you could. So what will happen once I finish signing? It will immediately make the envelope ready for sync, and because we have auto sync enabled, the app would trigger sync. So I'm clicking OK. The control will pass to the native app. and it detects that, oh, we have a sync envelope that needs to be synced, and it will directly send the envelope back to DocuSign servers. And right here, we completed it today at 10:45. We also have the bitcode enabled here. That concludes the part of anchor tabs. And we also took a look at some of the other things such as bitcode support. Now let's take a look at mobile SDK 101s. We have a brand new developers portal. This is a plug to please taking the survey so that we can do the improvement to our resources here. But it's a one place stop for iOS and Android SDK knowledge, as well as you can quickly go and check the other APIs we have. Let's take a look at Android. There are a bunch of things here, Android SDK 101, which help you getting started. What are the fundamental concepts? How are the patterns that are being used in the Android SDK? These are specific how-to guides. For example, how would you send and sign an envelope and sync offline? A textual version of what Naveen and I showcased you earlier. We have a sample app. And finally, how to go live, as well as reference for our API. Similarly, on the iOS side, we have iOS SDK 101, how to guide, sample app, go live, and API reference. Let's take a look at the sample app that is running on the cloud. And you could also, once you have correctly configured your account, you could use that information to populate integrator key, client secret, redact URI. Once you save it, it would allow you to perform the login. As well as there are individual sections on how to send offline envelope, captive signing or embedded signing, and how to do authorization code grant. Let's take a look at the code for the TGK sample apps. This is the Java repo. This is the Kotlin, and we'll be sharing these URLs with you later on. And finally, this is the iOS repo. Right here, at this point, we know that you need to interact a lot with DocuSign API. There is a handy Postman collections. All the information is on DocuSign GitHub IO, and you could import different APIs into Postman and play with them. Now, how would you ask any questions or how would you integrate the mobile SDKs? There's a separate repo for Android SDK and iOS SDK. Both Android and iOS have detailed setup instructions and various guides to help you getting started with our SDKs. Similarly, on the iOS side, there's a installation process, Cocoa port support, and manual integration guide, as well as a handy link of various guides, how you could open an issue if you have any questions. And we are very prompt about answering these, as well as helping out our clients to get moving as fast as possible. There are other resources as well. For example, if you would like to go to the support files, there is a captive signing Postman collection you could use. This collection has a create envelope call for one IPS. Once you set up the document base 64 string here, you could set up the signature details, add the tabs, and once you do that, you can send it to create an envelope, and the envelope ID can be used to get the details of a recipient right here by making recipient call. And finally, you could make a post recipient view call to get the URL, and this URL can be directly used to launch signing session. So just to recap, we went through the developers portal and all of these resources. We also took a look at SDK repo for iOS and Android. And if you go on the Stack Overflow, please tag it with DocuSign API. And right here, we will jump to the questions and answer session.
Okay, thank you so much, Ashok. So folks, remember to place your questions in the Q&A box at the end of your screen, just like we said before. And we do have a couple questions from the audience. The first one is there an SDK available for React Native app?
Hi, Naveen. Would you like to take this one?
Yeah, I can take it up. Recently, like we had one of the SDK customers who is having the React Native app. So they are able to integrate with our SDK, and it is very smooth process for them, and they're about to launch as well soon. So they're able to write the wrapper or the bridge, and can use our SDK APIs directly. So straight to the point, like, yeah, it is supported.
Okay, great. The next question is, I would like to know the authentication process while using the SDK. Can you share a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. So we used to we support authentication using multiple ways. If you go to the let me locate the DocuSign JWT token grant, you would see that there are multiple ways we can support authorization. We also support implicit grant. And let me go back to right here. Sorry. Yeah, login. This is for iOS SDK. This is one of the best place to get started here. There is a whole bunch of things you need to do, and Platform 101 is a very good resource for you to understand how to set up your developer sandbox, get the client ID, redirect URI, and creating the auth URLs. So this is a multiple step process, and it would allow you to get the access token. So I highly recommend going through the TGK sample app for Swift and correspondingly on Android to understand how the auth is being done, as well as going through DocuSign Platform 101 resource.
Yeah, I can answer from Android side as well. As Ashok mentioned, like, yeah, our SDK support two forms of authentication. So auth-based flow. So based on the demo, like which you saw today, where we present the web view screen and we entered the DocuSign credentials. So that's the OAuth-based login authentication. And we also support JWT-based authentication, where you, from the mobile app side, you take care of fetching the token from your backend. And once you get the token, you pass the token to our DocuSign SDK login API. So that's how we'll provide JWT our token support. So as Ashok mentioned, we do have a detailed how to guides documentation about how to generate JWT token from the mobile app as well.
Okay, great. Thank you. Do you have a beginner video or webinar?
Yes, we do have beginner videos and webinars. So if you go to our DocuSign for Developers account, you would see that there is a beginner video for iOS SDK. And I'm posting the detail right here. So from iOS SDK side, yes, it is there.
Ashok, are you sharing your screen?
Oh, sure.
Oh, I wasn't. I see the Q&A.
Right here, if you look at it, so this is one of the starting videos, DocuSign Signature API Native iOS SDK webinars. And there are corresponding follow-up videos which you could easily see. And if you have any issues, please do post a question on Stack Overflow, because we really want to, address the initial hurdles developers have while onboarding with our mobile SDKs.
Also, like similarly for Android, if you can go to DocuSign for developers, we have a bunch of developer videos available, and we do have the beginner videos for Android SDK as well, so which we made during the last couple of years, and we did some videos during DevCon as well. So you should be able to go through those. So as Ashok has shown here, so that's the channel like where you can find all our videos.
And like, for example, if you have any questions, even though it's less efficient, but you could also ask us right here, and somebody from DocuSign will answer it or point you to the right location.
Okay, great. Thank you. I think we have time for about one more question. How do I contact DocuSign if I'm having trouble with my SDK integration?
Sure. So we have, if you go to, for example, DocuSign iOS SDK, GitHub. Here, like the best way to get in touch with us directly is to create a new issue here, right? You could also go and similarly for Android, you could create an issue. If you are closely working with a customer support, like a personal, you could also send the questions their way, or tag the questions on Stack Overflow with DocuSign API.
Okay, great. And actually, I think we could squeeze one more question in. How do I enable responsive signing?
So for enabling responsive signing, you would need there's again a platform. Let me pull this up first. Responsive signing right here. So responsive signing, as you saw in our demo earlier, irrespective of the device size or specs, it tries to fit in the contents as fluidly as possible. So if you are signing something on iPad versus a smaller device, iPhone, the content is always shown in a more responsive manner compared to PDF-based signing. So that is our internal term, like an external term for signing using HTML-based documents. So right here, there are a whole bunch of like you could actually go here and start with a responsive signing. Oops, okay, here. So yeah, all of the things are detailed here, as well as in the Postman collection. Let me see here. There are a whole bunch of envelope creation methods, which would allow you to use a template and pass in the right set of parameters to create a responsive document. Let me see if I could locate quickly the I'm trying to locate the GitHub page for not this one. If you go here, support files, native SDK, there is a embedded signing guide. It allows you to see how exactly you could create responsive documents, as well as how to do the redirection, how to handle notifications. And finally, if you would like to use your own web view to load the signing URLs, you could also do that. and it points you to the right location. So I hope that answers the question. If there is any more details you need, again, reach out to us through GitHub or Stack Overflow.
Also like to add to the Ashok's point, so you can enable a setting in your admin, if you are admin in DocuSign portal. So there are settings like under sending, so you can enable those options to enable responsive signing. If you are using templates, you can enable the responsive signing per template as well. So all those settings are defined, and you can take leverage of that.
Okay, great.
Like if I am sending a template, like what Naveen mentioned, in the advanced options, I could edit it. And it says right here, mobile-friendly viewing with responsive signing. Allow recipients to view documents more easily on mobile devices. So this is what Naveen mentioned. This can be done either through DocuSign Web or through the APIs.
Perfect. Thank you, Ashok. We've got to wrap it up. We're just about at time here. So if you could go to the resources slide.
Sure. Let me see. Right here. Sorry.
No problem.
Yep.
Okay, next slide. There it is. All right, so here are all of the great resources that we covered today. You'll be receiving those along with the link to the recording from today's webinar in about a week from now. In particular, if you didn't get your questions answered or you have other questions, you can reach out to us at developers@docusign.com, and this team will follow up with you from today's webinar. Or you can go to Stack Overflow and tag them with DocuSign API for a community response. We also have a number of webinars coming up. You can reach out to us and attend our next webinar at API office hours. Again, reach out to us at developers@docusign.com for more information. So please note you will receive a survey. Be sure to take that at the end of the webinar and tell us how we did today and what you'd like to see for future webinars. Finally, I would like to thank both Naveen, Tulseela, and Ashok, Meena, for the wonderful presentation and demos today, along with fielding all of the great questions we received. And thank you to all of our attendees for joining us. Have a great remainder of the day, everyone. Bye.